Good morning, YouTube. Warbles on a lot here, and we're wondering whether there's going to be any first dog on the moon.
And he has to argue his brief. But for some reason, when you can see through his brief, you're, oh, no, mate, we don't know. We know you don't agree with that.
And yet, as Sean suggests, we have a problem here, and there might be issues with the way in which grids relate to renewable energy, and all that sort of stuff may well be true. But Chris, this is a problem we've got to solve, isn't it?
What is the
how to make this work, how to reduce our emissions, how to do things like taking Hazelwood out of the Victorian power grid, how to do things like having more wind power in South Australia. These are desirable outcomes.
Look, I suspect they are desirable outcomes, but you also have to trade them off against other challenges, which is, of course, ensuring that we've got stable electricity supply to keep up living standards, and ensuring that you've got a network that actually works for the people it's supposed to work for as well. And the criticism that has been made of South Australia is that it has gone out on its own. It's gone out on its own in a way that has dramatically increased prices and decreased the stability of the network. Though there are two goals that you might have here, and the second goal is just as important, if not more important, than the first.
We might be able to walk and chew gum. That's a political possibility.
Maybe. I've seen no evidence today.
Have you seen a person walking and chewing gum?
Yes, good point. Look, thanks all three. We're joined by a disembodied presence, and normally at this time we would potentially cross to the First Dog of the Moon Institute. We decided as a measure of some prudence we wouldn't do this week, because First Dog of the Moon is, of course, cartoonist laureate for the Western Bulldogs football team, Mr. On the Moon. Welcome.
Sorry, who is this?
Yes.
Hello.
This is the ABC calling, Mr. On the Moon. Are you well?
I remember the ABC. Oh, those were some good times we had, you and me, Mr. Frog.
Yeah. You went to the game yesterday then?
Yes. I'm surprised I still have a voice. But it wasn't good. It was a great win. I think footy was the winner, as were the Western Bulldogs. You now have 2 premiership cups, and that's pretty good.
Count them. And I understand that you will be returning for your legions of fans to present the Guide for Modern Living at about this time next week.
Oh, are you asking me? Is that a yes? Sure, I can do that.
Good man.
No, well, look, I've been awfully busy, and then I was unwell, and I got my toe caught in the plug of the spa, and then I had a holiday, and obviously the West Bulldogs premiership. You know, they won a flag yesterday, so there's been a fair bit on, and but if you want me to come back, I suppose it's usually Sunday, isn't it?
Yes, thank you so much. We appear to have we've lost the line to the Institute. First Dog of the Moon back next week. Thank you to our outsiders this morning. You've all done very well. You can now say thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
sir. Thank you, Jonathan.
Sean Carney, look for his book coming up, Press Escape. Commentator Sabine Wolf. Senior Research Fellow at the IPA, Chris Berg. I always thought IPA had something to do with beer.
People say that a lot.
Okay, sorry. I'm just running a very well-worn path there. And that is it for Sunday Extra this week. It's coming up to 10 o'clock.
Yeah. So it is. And yeah, I thought it was very, very interesting, the South Australian storminess of the grid. The way it happened just after sundown on Wednesday. I heard on the radio that there was a bloody great big storm and just hammered the shit out of South Australia, and their entire state was in darkness. And we had rain and storms and bad weather forecast around here, and I was actually coming back with the intention of setting up the new rain gauge, which some people may have seen. It's pretty difficult to show up here. In the foreground there's a rain gauge, in the background there's a great big rain gauge, but it's clear plastic and it's black and you're not seeing much of it. Anyway, I set that up and I got to use it on Thursday's rain. Marvellous being able to measure to 1/10 of a millimetre, because each millimetre on the scale gauge is 10 millimetres across. It's great fun. Anyway, I thought, gee, South Australian grid's fallen over. New South Wales provides some power to South Australia via the interconnector, and there's a storm coming through, and there was flooding in southern and central New South Wales. If the same storm does the same sorts of things to the New South Wales grid, then I won't be able to get any money out of the auto bank, and I won't be able to get any fuel out of the service station because the Bowsers all run on 240-volt grid-connected power, and the Bowsers are activated by the computer at the cash register, and none of the service stations have any wiring in place which would allow for a backup generator to be started on the forecourt with a power lead going inside to run the service station, so that you can't pump fuel when there's no grid power. So I ducked around to the auto bank and took out the next week's grocery money and an extra $50 and filled my car up just in case. So as they mentioned on The Outsiders, there was a lot of really opportunistic political bullshit. Xenophon, Nick Xenophon, he was the first one to immediately blame South Australia's reliance on alternative energy and renewable energy. This is what happened. As far as he was concerned, if they had more thermal power stations, then they wouldn't have a blackout. And at that stage, they already knew that 9 towers had fallen down, and there were wires in the mud and wires broken by trees blowing on them because they had really high winds after a couple of weeks of wet weather. So the ground's soft. And he wouldn't have a bloody bar of it. And then Barnybaby Joyce, my local member of parliament, the Minister for Agriculture and Deputy Prime Minister and leader of the National Party, he was into it because he fucking hates windmills. He must really bloody hate Glen Innes because, well, not only we got 2 wind farms on the build, we've also got a solar farm on the build. And there was a coup d'etat on the Glen Innes Council last week at the first meeting of the new council. It was expected that Steve Toms, who was mayor until 6 years ago when he went off to become a border commissioner, he won the ballot on primary votes. The next in line on primary votes was a young fella, Andrew Parsons, but Andrew Parsons didn't want to be deputy mayor. So the old mayor, who needed preferences to get in, I think, he, even if he didn't need preferences to get in, he was number 3 on the ballot. He was expected to be the new deputy mayor, and that would be kind of a replay of the team we used to have until 6 years ago. Well, the other elected councillors revolted, and they conspired between themselves, and there was much telephoning and lobbying among themselves. And Carol Sparks, aka Squirrel, the Green candidate who was elected as a first-term councillor and made sort of headlines in the fact that she got elected onto the council, she's now our deputy mayor. So, like I said, Barnybaby Joyce must hate Glen Innes because we've got 2 wind farms, a solar panel farm, and we've got a green deputy mayor. Woo-hoo, yahoo, yippee, those vote green or die stickers, they must have done some good, eh? I actually paid for a 3rd edition of them to be printed this week. So anyway, yeah, it was all the fault of the alternative energy. That's why they lost power on Wednesday night, according to Barnybaby Joyce. And then, yeah, Malgollem TurningBully came out and he started making noises about how it was all the fault of these wicked, evil, renewable energy freaks who were doing things to upset the base load expectations of the power stations. All a lot of shit. Because you know what happened Thursday afternoon? At around about 4 or 5 o'clock here, the news says, oh, by the way, everybody in Adelaide's being told to pack up, stop work, piss off and go home right now because tonight's storm, Thursday night's, is going to be as big, if not bigger and uglier and nastier than Wednesday night's storm. And Wednesday night's storm actually knocked down 19 of those big lattice work towers. So the unprecedented storm on Wednesday night that was a once-in-a-thousand-year event was surpassed on Thursday night with another one. And they're getting, like we are here, a few little sunny breaks to almost kind of dry the ground out, and then we're getting more rain again. Happily, you know, the weather gods must be smiling on me because I kind of only got about 13 millimetres on Thursday. And we've had a fair bit of wind, and the wind dries out the ground, so the spring's no longer running under the hut, but the driveway is a mud pipe. So what actually caused the storms? Well, if you back scroll through my uploads, you'll see there's quite a few videos there where I've talked about global warming, and I've always mentioned that as the atmosphere warms and as the ocean warms, your warm wind blowing over your warm water picks up more moisture. And moisture carries a lot of energy. It has this latent heat characteristic, so it takes a lot of heat to make water change temperature. It's got 10 times the thermal mass of steel. So if you increase the humidity of the air, you increase the amount of energy, temperature energy, that that air can carry. So you effectively turn the throttle up on your thunderstorms. And that's why 30, 40 years ago, if a hailstone was as big as a golf ball, it made the national news. Now, to make the national news, your hailstones have to be bigger than oranges or bigger than cricket balls. So the extreme weather events were predicted to become more intense and more frequent. And what's going on is that because humanity has refused to actually reduce its use of fossil fuels, reduce its emissions of carbon to the atmosphere, the greenhouse gases have caused global warming to the point where the extreme weather events are now destroying humanity's ability to have an industrial civilization. If the world is to hold global warming to 2 degrees, and if all the countries in the world are to have a proportionate share of how much carbon they're allowed to burn based on how many people live there, going at the current rate, Australia is going to have to stop burning coal entirely in 6 years' time. Right? So anything that the Liberal, Labor, National Party, Hansonite, independent Fruit Loop politicians are telling you to the contrary is utter bullshit. If the world is to stay below 2 degrees of global warming, and if Australia is to only burn its fair share, to only emit its fair share, Australia is going to have to be weaned off coal 100% entirely and totally in 6 years. I don't see that happening. So I can expect some really, really dramatic, spectacular deconstructions of Australian industrial infrastructure and transport infrastructure and energy infrastructure. So more grids are going to fall down. More roads are going to be washed out. More bridge abutments are going to be washed out. And every time it rains on a road that didn't get resealed because the politicians were busy saving money so that they could have a bigger fucking football stadium, the water is going to get in through the cracks in the bitumen seal. It's not flexible anymore because it's lost its volatiles, and the roads are just going to turn into potholes. And intense rain does that very efficiently. And yeah, there's 9 meals on the supermarket shelves for everybody in every town and suburb in the country. 3 days' food, and the shelves are filled up by diesel-powered trucks. And the trucks run over the roads that are about to fall to pieces due to the potholes. And we don't have any refineries, so our fuel, our petrol, our diesel, our kerosene, all that shit, it all comes into Australia on boats from Singapore. And we've only got 29 days maximum storage of transport fuel in the country. Average holdings 21 days. Twice a month it gets down to 14 days. So as the global warming that everybody didn't want to believe in ramps up the increasingly intense and extreme and frequent weather events, it becomes less and less profitable to farm. You can't get somebody to lend you $1 million to plant a crop that's not going to fucking be harvestable. So yeah, that's what's going on at the moment. And I'm furiously resuscitating batteries to swap out everything in the pyramid. There you go. Now you know. Been an interesting week. And yeah, Donald Trump's making a complete fucking Fruit Loop of himself. Hillary Clinton actually looked pretty good compared to Donald Trump, even though I know she's a fucking maniacal warhawk who likes telling fibs to try and boost her own public image in her own eyes. I think that's kind of what she's doing. She can't possibly allow any chinks to show because she has to be, purer than the driven snow because she's up against men. It's like when I used to work for Australia's first woman with a commercial helicopter license. She had to be better than all the men at the same job because everybody was looking for something to mark her down on because she was a woman. That's chauvinism. male chauvinist piggery. Anyway, Warbles not a lot to YouTube. We're on the upload limit. Ciao.